Okay, so growing up in Oakhaven was like living in a Brothers Grimm fairy tale, except with less singing woodland creatures and way more suspicious glares. I was Marianne, the orphan girl, the one with the strange eyes, and the even stranger knack for knowing when the chickens were about to lay extra eggs. Don't ask me how, it's just a vibe. The villagers, bless their superstitious hearts, weren't exactly fans of different. They clung to their traditions like life rafts in a storm, their fear of the unknown fueling a constant stream of whispers and side eyes. She's cursed! Old Maggie would cackle, her single tooth glinting in the firelight. Marked by the devil, that one? Don't go near her, Martha, the baker's wife, would warn her children. She'll steal your soul with those eyes. And yeah, it was a real confidence booster, let me tell you. I spent most of my childhood on the fringes, a shadow flitting through the cobblestone streets, my only companions the stray dogs and the occasional grumpy cat. Marianne, Mrs. Elmsworth, the village elder, would say, her voice a disapproving rasp. Why don't you join the other children? It's not natural for a young girl to be alone. They don't like me, I'd mumble, scuffing my worn boots on the dusty ground. Nonsense, she'd say, her lips pursed in a disapproving frown. You just need to make more of an effort. Smile more, be helpful, and for heaven's sake, stop with those creepy predictions. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fit in. My attempts at conversation were met with awkward silences. My offers of help were brushed aside with suspicion, and my creepy predictions, which, let's be honest, were usually just common sense observations, were met with fear and disdain. Marianne, Thomas, the blacksmith's son, would sneer, "You're such a freak. No wonder your parents abandoned you." Those words stung, a constant reminder of my isolation, my otherness. I longed for acceptance, for belonging, for a place in this strange, superstitious world. But it seemed like the more I tried, the further I drifted away, like a lone ship lost in a fog-bound sea. And as the days grew shorter, the nights colder, and the whispers louder, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something dark, something ominous, something that would change Oakhaven and my life forever. Okay, so the storm hit like a vengeful ice giant, unleashing its fury on Oakhaven with a vengeance. The wind howled like a banshee, the snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, and the temperature plummeted faster than a politician's approval rating after a scandal. The villagers, their faces pale with fear, huddled in their homes, their whispers now laced with panic. "It's the worst storm in decades," old Maggie wailed, her voice trembling. "The end is nigh." "We need to seek shelter," Martha, the baker's wife, cried, herding her children towards the village hall, the only building sturdy enough to withstand the blizzard's wrath. As the storm raged, the villagers' fear turned into a frenzy. They blamed the weather on anything and everything, a bad harvest, a disrespectful comment about the local deity, even the stray dog that had been howling at the moon the night before. And then, inevitably, their eyes turned to me. "It's her fault," someone shouted, their voice echoing through the panicked crowd. "The orphan girl, she's cursed. She brought this upon us." The accusations spread like wildfire, fueled by fear and desperation. The villagers, their faces contorted with anger and terror, surged towards me, their fingers pointed, their voices raised in a chorus of blame. "She's a witch! Burn her! Sacrifice her to appease the spirits!" I tried to defend myself, to reason with them, but my words were lost in the storm of their fury. They pushed me, shoved me, their eyes burning with a hatred that chilled me to the bone. "Please," I begged, my voice trembling. "I didn't do anything. I don't have that kind of power." But they wouldn't listen. They dragged me towards the village hall, their grip tightening, their faces grim. They threw me against the heavy oak door, the cold metal biting into my skin. "Let us in," they shouted, pounding on the door. "We need shelter." The door creaked open, revealing the village elder, Mrs. Elmsworth, her face pale, her eyes filled with fear. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It's her," someone shouted, pointing at me. "She's the cause of the storm. We need to sacrifice her to appease the spirits." Mrs. Elmsworth hesitated, her gaze flickering between the angry mob and my trembling figure. And then to my horror, she nodded. Very well, she said, her voice cold and resolute. For the good of the village, she must be sacrificed. The villagers cheered, their faces contorted with a mixture of relief and bloodlust. They pushed me away from the door, their hands shoving me into the blinding snow, the icy wind whipping at my face. No! I screamed, my voice raw with despair. Please don't do this! But they wouldn't listen. They slammed the door shut, the heavy oak barrier sealing my fate. I was alone, abandoned, left to die in the unforgiving cold. As the storm raged around me, I sank to my knees, my body trembling, my tears freezing on my cheeks. I had never felt so alone, so betrayed, so utterly abandoned. And as the darkness closed in, I couldn't help but wonder why. Why me? What had I done to deserve this? But there was no answer, only the howling wind, the biting snow, and the chilling realization that this was the end. Okay, so dying in a blizzard isn't exactly a walk in the park. It's more like a slow, agonizing crawl through a frozen hell, where every breath is a battle, every heartbeat a victory against the encroaching cold. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, tearing at my clothes, biting into my skin. The snow fell relentlessly, burying me in a white shroud, a chilling reminder of my impending oblivion. I stumbled through the drifts, my legs heavy, my body numb, my mind a fog of confusion and despair. Help me! I croaked, my voice barely a whisper, lost in the howling wind. Please, someone, help me! But there was no answer, only the relentless storm, the unforgiving cold, and the growing realization that this was the end. I collapsed in the snow, my body shivering uncontrollably, my teeth chattering like a demented drummer. The cold seeped into my bones, numbing my limbs, slowing my heartbeat, stealing my breath. I thought of the villagers, huddled in the warmth of the village hall, their laughter echoing through the storm, their bellies full of the feast they'd prepared while I was left to die. I thought of Mrs. Elmsworth, her face etched with a chilling indifference as she condemned me to this fate. I thought of Thomas, the blacksmith's son, his cruel words echoing in my mind, a constant reminder of my isolation, my otherness. Why? I whispered, my voice a ragged sob. Why me? But there was no answer, only the relentless storm, the unforgiving cold, and the growing darkness that threatened to consume me. I closed my eyes, my mind drifting, my memories flashing before me like a flickering film. I saw my parents, their faces blurred and distant, their voices a faint echo in the recesses of my mind. I saw the orphanage, the cold, sterile walls, the lonely nights, the endless days filled with longing and despair. I saw the villagers, their faces twisted in fear and hatred, their hands pushing me into the cold, their voices condemning me to this fate. And then I saw something else, a light, a warmth, a presence that enveloped me like a loving embrace. I felt a sense of peace, a calmness I had never known before. The pain subsided, the cold retreated, and the darkness gave way to a gentle light. I opened my eyes, my vision clearing, my mind sharpening. I was no longer in the snow-covered field. I was in a different place, a place of ethereal beauty, a world of swirling colors and shimmering lights. Welcome, Marianne, a voice whispered, soft and gentle, like the rustling of leaves in a summer breeze. I turned, my heart pounding, my breath catching in my throat. Standing before me was a figure, tall and majestic, their form shimmering like moonlight on water. Their eyes, deep and ancient, held a wisdom that spanned centuries, a knowledge that transcended the boundaries of life and death. Who are you? I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. We are the spirits of the mountain, the figure said, their voice a chorus of whispers, a symphony of winds. We have watched you, Marianne. We have seen your suffering, your pain, your unjust fate. I looked at them, my eyes filled with a mixture of awe and confusion. Why me? I asked, my voice trembling. You were chosen, Marianne. The the spirit said, chosen to be our instrument, our vessel, our voice. But, but why? I asked, my mind reeling. Because you are strong, Marianne, the spirit said. Because you are resilient. Because you have a fire within you that cannot be extinguished. They reached out, their hands shimmering like stardust, their touch sending a jolt of energy through my being. We offer you a gift, Marianne, they said, a chance to reclaim your life, to avenge your death, to bring justice to those who wronged you. I looked at them, my heart pounding, my mind racing. A chance to live again, a chance to right the wrongs that had been inflicted upon me, a chance to make them pay? Yes, I whispered, my voice filled with a newfound determination. Yes, I accept. Okay, so imagine standing in front of beings made of moonlight and whispers, their eyes holding the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes. It was trippy, like that time I accidentally ate those special brownies at the village festival. But instead of seeing dancing squirrels, I was facing the spirits of the mountain, and they were offering me a deal. We can bring you back, Marianne, they said, their voices a chorus of wind chimes and rustling leaves. But there's a price. A price? I echoed, my eyebrows raised. Like what? My firstborn, my immortal soul? Because honestly, I'm not really using either of those right now. The spirits seemed to shimmer with amusement. No, Marianne, the price is your life force. You will be reborn, but your time will be limited. You will have one moon cycle to fulfill your vengeance, to settle the score with those who wronged you. One moon cycle? That was like, what, 28 days? I mused, tapping my chin. Seems a bit short, doesn't it? Can I get, like, a loyalty discount or something? The spirits remained silent, their gazes unwavering. Okay, no haggling then. But honestly, what did I have to lose? I was already dead, right? And the thought of those villagers getting away with what they did, that just wasn't sitting right with me. All right, I said, my voice firm. Deal. But let's be clear, this isn't just about revenge. It's about justice. It's about balance. Those villagers, they violated the natural order, the laws of hospitality, the basic human decency of not letting someone freeze to death on your doorstep. The spirits seemed to nod, their forms rippling like reflections in a pond. We understand, Marianne. The mountain remembers. The wind carries the whispers of injustice. You will be our instrument of retribution. They extended their hands, their touch sending a shiver of power through me, a strange energy that felt both ancient and exhilarating. When you return, they said, you will have the power to command the elements, to bend the forces of nature to your will. Use it wisely, Marianne. The mountain demands justice, but it also demands balance. Oh, I nodded, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. This was it, my second chance. My opportunity to right the wrongs, to settle the score, to show those villagers that you don't mess with Marianne and get away with it. Don't worry, I said, a sly grin spreading across my face. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. They're going to wish they'd just let me share their damn stew. And with that, I felt a surge of energy, a rush of power, and then darkness. Okay, so waking up in my own bed, the smell of wood smoke and stale bread filling the air was a bit of a shock. 1 minute I'm having a cosmic chat with mountain spirits, the next I'm back in my dingy little attic room, the same rickety bed, the same patched-up quilt, the same leaky roof that always dripped when it rained. What the? I muttered, rubbing my eyes, convinced I was still hallucinating. Had the mountain spirits spiked their spectral tea with something a little extra? I stumbled to the window, pushing aside the tattered curtain. The village looked normal. People bustling about, children chasing stray dogs, old Maggie gossiping with Martha by the well. No blizzard, no vengeful spirits, no sense of impending doom. Wait a minute, I said, my eyes widening as a chilling realization dawned. The apple tree in the Elmsworth's yard was in full bloom. The apple tree that always bloomed a week before the first snow. The first snow that had, well, you know. Holy crap, I breathed, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm back. I actually went and got myself reborn. The initial shock gave way to a wave of, Well, it wasn't exactly happiness, more like a cold, hard determination. The despair, the sense of betrayal, the lingering chill of death, it was all still there. But now it was mixed with something else, a power, a purpose, a knowledge that I had a score to settle. I walked to the cracked mirror hanging on the wall, my reflection staring back at me with a newfound intensity. My eyes, always a bit too bright, a bit too knowing for the villagers' comfort, now seemed to gleam with an eerie light. This time, I whispered, my voice a low growl, things are going to be different. I spent the next few days observing, planning, and subtly testing the limits of my newfound power. A whispered word to the wind, and the Elmsworth's washing line snapped, sending their freshly laundered clothes tumbling into the mud. A focused thought towards the well, and the bucket slipped from old Maggie's grasp, splashing her with icy water. Okay, maybe that last one was just petty, but she really deserved it. Marianne, Mrs. Elmsworth said one afternoon, her voice sharp with suspicion, have you been meddling with the elements again? I feigned innocence, my eyes wide and guileless. Me? Mrs. Elmsworth? How could you even think such a thing? I'm just a poor, helpless orphan. She narrowed her eyes, her gaze lingering on me a moment longer than necessary. See that you remember that, girl, she said, her voice a low warning. Don't test my patience. But her threats held no power over me anymore. I knew what they were capable of, the depths of their cruelty, the coldness of their hearts. And this time, I wouldn't be a victim. I would be the instrument of their destruction, the architect of their downfall. The storm was coming. I could feel it in the air. The growing tension, the shift in the wind, the whispers of the mountain spirits echoing in my soul. And this time, I was ready. Okay, so having the power to control the elements is kind of cool. Like, move over Elsa, there's a new ice queen in town. Kind of cool, but it's also kind of terrifying. One minute you're just a regular orphan girl, the next you're basically a walking natural disaster waiting to happen. I spent a lot of time those first few days after my rebirth, just feeling things out. Could I really make the wind blow? Could I summon snow flurries on a sunny day? Spoiler alert, yes, and it was awesome. But with that power came a heavy responsibility, a knowledge that I could cause serious damage if I wasn't careful. Okay, Marianne, I told myself, pacing my tiny attic room. You need a plan that's both effective and, not going to accidentally unleash an apocalyptic ice age. Revenge was definitely on the menu, but I wasn't interested in mindless destruction. I wanted them to feel the fear, the isolation, the despair that I had experienced. I wanted them to understand the consequences of their actions, the weight of their betrayal. So I started small, a subtly placed gust of wind here, a strategically timed hailstorm there, just enough to unsettle them, to make them question their reality, to plant the seeds of doubt and paranoia. Did you see that? Martha, the baker's wife, whispered to old Maggie, her eyes wide with alarm. The wind! It almost blew the roof off the bakery! Old Maggie, bless her paranoid heart, clutched her shawl tighter. It's a sign, she croaked, a sign of the impending doom. Doom? Martha squeaked. But what have we done? Who knows? Old Maggie cackled, her single tooth glinting ominously. Perhaps we've angered the spirits. Perhaps we've wronged someone? Bingo. That's what I wanted them to think, to question their actions, to feel the weight of their guilt, to wonder if their cruelty had finally caught up with them. But the real piece de resistance was yet to come. I knew the villagers would seek shelter in the village hall again when the storm hit. It was their tradition, their safe haven, their symbol of collective security, and I was going to shatter it. I spent hours studying the building, its structure, its weaknesses, the flow of the wind around its eaves. I practiced manipulating the snow, the ice, the very air itself, honing my control, refining my technique. This time, I muttered, my eyes fixed on the village hall, a chilling smile spreading across my face. They won't have a roof over their heads. They'll be exposed, vulnerable, just like I was. The internal struggle was real, though. Could I really do this? Could I unleash the full force of my power, knowing the potential consequences? But then I'd remember that night, the cold, the despair, the betrayal, and the doubt would melt away, replaced by a burning certainty. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. It was about balance. It was about showing those villagers and myself that even a powerless orphan girl could rise from the ashes, command the elements, and become a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so the week leading up to the storm was a masterclass in playing the long game. I had to act normal, like I didn't have a direct line to the mountain spirits and a plan that would make Mother Nature herself say, "Damn, girl." The villagers, bless their oblivious hearts, continued their usual routine of thinly veiled insults and blatant ostracizing. It was like they had a checklist. Ignore Marianne? Check. Give Marianne suspicious glances? Check. Mutter about curses and bad omens whenever Marianne walks by? Triple check. "Morning, Marianne," Martha, the baker's wife, would say, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You look well rested. Did you sleep through all that wind last night?" "Oh, I slept like a baby," I'd reply, a sweet smile plastered on my face. A baby who can summon mini tornadoes with a flick of the wrist, but they didn't need to know that. Ho. Mrs. Elmsworth, ever the vigilant guardian of village traditions, kept a close eye on me. "Marianne," she'd say, her voice sharp as a winter wind, "you'll be attending the communal prayers tonight, won't you? We need all the divine protection we can get with this storm brewing." "Wouldn't miss it for the world," I'd chirped, batting my eyelashes innocently. Internally, I was picturing the look on their faces when they realized their prayers were about as effective as a chocolate teapot against my blizzard of vengeance. But beneath the outward compliance, my inner resolve hardened with each passing day. I could feel the power thrumming within me, a wild energy that mirrored the growing intensity of the approaching storm. The whispers of the mountain spirits grew louder, urging me on, reminding me of the bargain, the price, the justice that was waiting to be served. The tension in the village was palpable. The air crackled with fear, the usual chatter replaced by hushed whispers and anxious glances towards the darkening sky. They knew the storm was coming, a storm unlike any they had seen before, and deep down, I think they knew, on some primal level, that they had brought it upon themselves. But I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing my fear, my anger, my thirst for revenge. I would play the role of the innocent orphan, the compliant outcast, until the very last moment. And then, when the storm broke, when the winds howled and the snow fell, they would see the true face of Marianne, the girl they had wronged, the woman they had underestimated, the force of nature they had unleashed. Okay, so remember that storm I mentioned earlier? The one that was like a vengeful ice giant? Well, this one was like its bigger, angrier brother, the one who skipped leg day but doubled down on rage. The wind shrieked through the village, tearing at rooftops, uprooting trees, and sending anything not nailed down flying through the air like demented kites. The villagers, their faces pale with terror, scrambled towards the village hall, their earlier bravado replaced by a frantic scramble for survival. "It's worse than last time," Martha screamed, her children clinging to her skirts like terrified koala bears. "The spirits are angry," old Maggie wailed, her single tooth chattering like a castanet. "We're doomed." They pushed and shoved, their fear turning into a chaotic free-for-all as they fought to get inside the hall, the heavy oak door their only barrier against the fury of the storm. Mrs. Elmsworth, her face etched with panic, struggled to maintain order, her voice lost in the cacophony of screams and desperate pleas. "Calm yourselves," she shouted, her voice hoarse. "We must work together if we are to survive this." But her words were drowned out by the howling wind and the terrified cries of the villagers. They barricaded the windows, reinforced the doors, and huddled together in the flickering candlelight, their eyes wide with fear, their prayers a desperate plea for salvation. Outside, the storm raged, the snow falling in thick, blinding sheets, the wind howling like a demon, unleashed. The temperature plummeted, the air growing heavy with the threat of frostbite and hypothermia. It was a night of chaos, a night of fear, a night where the very survival of Oakhaven hung in the balance. And as I watched from the shadows, my breath misting in the frigid air, a chilling calm settled over me. The storm was here, the time had come, and I, Marianne, the girl they had cast out, The woman they had underestimated was about to become the instrument of their reckoning. Okay, so picture this: the village hall, a beacon of flickering candlelight in the raging storm. The villagers huddled inside, their faces a mixture of fear and desperation. I approached the heavy oak door, my breath misting in the frigid air, my heart pounding with a strange mix of anticipation and acceptance. I raise my hand to knock, but before my knuckles can connect with the wood, the door swings open. Mrs. Elmsworth stands in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes filled with a chilling mix of recognition and resolve. "Marianne," she says, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. "What are you doing here?" "Seeking shelter," I reply, my voice calm, steady. "The storm? It's worse than last time." She hesitates, her gaze flickering over my shoulder to the swirling snow, the raging wind. And then, her eyes harden, her jaw sets, and I see the same cold determination that sealed my fate a lifetime ago. "There's no room for you here, Marianne," she says, her voice firm, unwavering. "You are not one of us. You bring ill fortune. You are the cause of this storm." The words sting, a familiar echo of past betrayals. But this time there's no shock, no surprise, no desperate plea for acceptance. This time I understand. They are who they are. A community bound by fear, driven by superstition, blinded by their own self-preservation. "I see," I say, my voice devoid of emotion. Then I accept my fate, and I do. I turn away from the door, my back to the warmth, the shelter, the illusion of safety. I step out into the storm, the wind whipping at my clothes, the snow stinging my face. But this time there's no fear, no despair, no sense of abandonment. This time there's only a chilling calm, a deep-seated knowledge that I am not the victim here. I am the catalyst. I hear the door slam shut behind me, the heavy thud echoing the finality of their decision. But this time, there's no heartbreak, no tears, no desperate cries for help. This time, there's only a quiet satisfaction, a grim anticipation of what's to come. I stand in the storm, my eyes closed, my senses attuned to the howling wind, the swirling snow, the whispers of the mountain spirits echoing in my soul. I feel the power surging within me, a raw, untamed energy that mirrors the fury of the blizzard. And I know, with a certainty that transcends logic or reason, that this is the moment. The villagers, huddled inside the hall, their voices a muffled murmur against the raging storm, believe they are safe. They believe they have made the right choice, the necessary sacrifice, to ensure their own survival. But they are wrong. They have underestimated me. They have underestimated the power of the mountain, the fury of the storm, the vengeance of a girl they wronged. I raise my head, my eyes fixed on the swirling snow, my voice a low, guttural chant that blends with the howling wind. I speak the words of the curse, the ancient incantation that will unleash the mountain's wrath, the words that will seal their fate. And as I speak, I feel the power coursing through me, the energy building, the storm responding to my call. The wind picks up, the snow falls faster, the temperature plummets, and the ground beneath my feet begins to tremble. The villagers inside the hall, their laughter silenced, their prayers forgotten, feel the shift, the change in the air, the growing sense of dread. They look at each other, their eyes wide with fear, their faces pale, with the realization that something is terribly wrong. But it's too late. The choice has been made. The die has been cast. And as I stand in the heart of the storm, my voice rising in a final, triumphant cry, I know that their time has come. Okay, so imagine channeling the raw power of a mountain, the kind of energy that can carve canyons and reshape landscapes. That's what it felt like as I stood in the heart of the storm, the wind whipping around me like a chorus of vengeful spirits. The cold bit at my skin, but I barely felt it. The chill inside me, the icy resolve that had solidified over the past week, was far more potent. I closed my eyes, not to shut out the storm, but to open myself to it, to let it flow through me, to become one with its fury. I could feel the mountain spirits, ancient and powerful, their presence a tangible force, a symphony of whispers echoing in my soul. They were there, waiting, ready to unleash their wrath. Spirits of the mountain, I began, my voice a low growl that blended with the howling wind. Hear my plea. Witness the injustice, the cruelty, the betrayal that has been inflicted upon me. The wind intensified, swirling around me like a vortex, carrying my words out into the storm, across the frozen landscape. To the ears of the mountain spirits, I could feel their power surging through me, a raw, untamed energy that made my body tremble, my heart pound in my chest. I was cast out, I continued, my voice rising, left to die in the cold, abandoned by those I trusted, betrayed by those I called my community. The snow fell faster, thicker, the flakes biting at my skin like tiny shards of ice. The wind howled louder, its cries echoing through the village, a chilling premonition of the doom to come. They sought shelter, warmth, safety, I said, my voice laced with a bitter irony. But they denied me the same. They closed their doors, their hearts, their minds to my pleas, leaving me to face the fury of the storm alone. I could almost see their faces, the villagers huddled inside the hall, their fear growing with each gust of wind, each crash of thunder. They were beginning to understand. They were beginning to feel the weight of their actions, the consequences of their cruelty. Now, I whispered, my voice laced with steel, I call upon the power of the mountain, the fury of the storm, the vengeance of the wronged. Let the elements be my weapon, the ice and snow my instruments of justice. I raised my arms, my hands outstretched towards the sky, feeling the power of the mountain spirits flowing through me, a torrent of energy that made me feel both invincible and terrifyingly vulnerable. The wind responded to my call, its cries growing louder, more menacing. The snow swirled around me, forming a swirling vortex of white, a chilling prelude to the destruction to come. Let the roof that sheltered them become their tomb, I chanted, my voice echoing through the storm, carrying my curse to the ears of the mountain spirits. Let the warmth they sought become their icy prison. Let the safety they craved become their final resting place. The ground beneath my feet began to tremble, a low rumble that grew in intensity with each passing moment. The wind howled like 1,000 banshees, its cries a symphony of vengeance. The snow fell in blinding sheets, burying the village in a white shroud, a chilling premonition of the icy tomb that awaited them. Let the mountain claim its own, I whispered, my voice filled with a chilling resolve. Let the storm deliver its justice. Let the winter claim its due. The power surged through me, a torrent of energy that made me gasp, my body trembling, my eyes burning with an otherworldly light. I could feel the mountain spirits responding, their ancient power aligning with my will, their fury echoing my own. And as I stood in the heart of the storm, my voice rising in a final triumphant cry, I knew that the curse had been spoken. The wheels of justice had been set in motion. And the villagers of Oakhaven, those who had turned their backs on a girl in need, were about to face the full force of the mountain's wrath, the chilling embrace of the winter's claim. Okay, so the mountain didn't mess around. It wasn't just a gentle snowfall and a few dramatic gusts of wind. It was a full-blown avalanche, the kind of earth-shattering, ice and snow Armageddon that makes you realize just how small and insignificant humans really are in the face of nature's raw power. The ground began to tremble, a low rumble that grew in intensity, shaking the very foundations of the village hall. Inside, the villagers, their faces pale with terror, clung to each other, their prayers now desperate cries for mercy. They knew. They felt it in the air, the shift in the wind, the chilling silence that preceded the storm's final act. Then it began. A crack appeared on the mountainside, a jagged line snaking through the snow-covered peaks, a prelude to the avalanche's devastating descent. The snow began to shift, a slow, almost languid movement that gathered momentum with each passing second, growing into an unstoppable force of nature. The avalanche roared down the mountain, a wall of white, a cascade of ice and snow that swallowed everything in its path. Trees snapped like twigs, boulders were tossed aside like pebbles, and the very air vibrated with the sheer power of the mountain's wrath. The villagers inside the hall, their screams now a frantic chorus of terror, braced themselves against the inevitable. They knew there was no escape, no refuge from the avalanche's icy embrace. Their past actions, their cruelty, their betrayal had sealed their fate. The avalanche hit the village with the force of 1,000 thunderbolts, a crushing wave of ice and snow that engulfed the village hall, burying it beneath a mountain of white. The screams of the villagers were cut short, silenced by the crushing weight of the snow, the icy grip of the mountain's justice. I watched it all unfold, my face devoid of emotion, my heart strangely calm. The destruction was immense, the devastation complete. The village, once a symbol of community, of safety, of belonging, was now a tomb, a monument to the villagers' cruelty, their fear, their ultimate downfall. But I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, no sense of vengeance fulfilled. The anger, the rage, the burning desire for revenge that had consumed me just moments before had now subsided, replaced by a chilling detachment. The mountain had spoken. Justice had been served. Balance had been restored. And now, it was time for me to move on. I turned away from the destruction, my back to the icy tomb, my gaze fixed on the horizon. The storm began to subside, the wind softening, the snow falling gently, as if the mountain itself was sighing, its fury spent. I walked away, my footsteps silent in the snow, my heart filled with a strange sense of peace. The villagers were gone, their lives extinguished, their stories silenced, but their memory would remain, a chilling reminder of the consequences of cruelty, the power of justice, the unwavering force of nature. I didn't linger. There was nothing left for me in Oakhaven. My purpose had been fulfilled, my task completed. I had returned, I had avenged, I had restored balance. And now it was time for me to embrace my new reality, to accept my destiny, to find my own peace. I walked towards the rising sun, the promise of a new day, a new beginning, a new life. The storm was over. The curse had been spoken. The winter's claim had been settled. And Marianne, the girl who had been cast out, the woman who had been reborn, was finally free.